All right, so We Need Answers podcast, episode 109, if I'm not mistaken. Today we got Ryan here today. Ryan's going to talk to us, give us some good game about real estate, development, all of the above, all the housing stuff. Known Ryan for some time now, and I came across her page when she was speaking at a panel, and I checked out the videos, and she was giving up a lot of good game, but she couldn't go in too in depth because it was more than there's a lot of people on the panel. So I said, you know what, you could come on the show and you could take all the time you want and give up all the game, because I feel like what we discussed, everything that you were saying is for you wanted to get to the people,
right? To
the people,
a proper platform to get people to understand housing a little better,
right?
Yeah.
So. And as I was telling Ryan also, this is a field that I know nothing about. I'm an apartment guy, and I want to make do and make the right decisions. That's one of the things that kind of hold me back from jumping into the housing and stuff, because everybody say get a house because you don't want to keep paying rent and all that, but I still want to know the ins and outs.
It's a lot of information out there, and it's a lot of like, where do you even start?
Right.
It's a lot of it's also a lot of like misinformation, that's like, oh, you gotta, bring a box lunch, for 3 years straight to save enough money. Yeah. Like, it's a lot of misinformation.
And I think a lot of people go off of what they don't know, but what they assume is what is right.
Right.
So going in, before we go in, I want you to introduce yourself, start from the top, how you got into this field.
Okay. So I'm Ryan, as Mook said. I kind of landed into development. Like, I never thought that I would be in this kind of position. But it all kind of was like a strange turn of events. So I grew up, my father has a construction business. So I didn't understand construction, but I just understood somewhat of what an entrepreneur's life was like.
Okay.
Like, my father was like my basketball coach when I was younger. Like, I think he had, a lot of times people may think like, as an entrepreneur, you have no time because, you're working all day. But in some cases, you have more time than what?
The 9 to 5.
The 9 to 5.
Yeah.
So I always knew I wanted to like do something on my own, but I never had any kind of passion. I never knew what that would be.
Okay.
And then when I graduated from college, I went straight to live in New York. I had a job. I graduated college like May 12th, and June 1st, I already had like my apartment, my job. I didn't have an apartment. I had a job, and I went and stayed with my sister for a few weeks, and then I found an apartment.
What you go to school for?
I went to school for mass communication.
Okay.
I changed my major like 3 times, and I got to the point where I was like, I gotta just pick a major that's gonna be easy to graduate. Because I can't keep.
Same here.
Yeah, you understand where it's like.
This is kind of where you start to figure out yourself.
Yeah, and you start to think more strategically. Like, I could spend more time of keep changing my major, or I could just get a degree and get up out of here.
Right, exactly. Get that paper. That's all.
That's all you need.
Yeah, that's a certificate.
And come to find, I mean, of course you don't really need this. We find out as we get older. Like, it was a tweet today. Like, no one's ever seen my diploma. No one's ever seen
exactly.
But obviously, we know we can put that on our resume, and we mean it.
Make a difference.
It's true.
A little.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
We ain't lying about that.
Yeah.
So. But my first job in New York was working for a developer.
Okay.
And what developers do is there's residential developers and then there's commercial developers. Residential developers pretty much build anything from houses to huge high rises. And then you have commercial developers who build anything from like shopping centers, like Dave Bramble at Northwood, to little towns. Like, a lot of people don't realize, like, Columbia, Maryland was just like the brainchild of a developer named Jim Rouse in the 50s.
I didn't know that.
And he wanted to create this like kind of diverse and equitable like city, if you will. So he created Columbia.
Okay. In the 50s?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure this was like Columbia is like a new thing. Like, it's not like something that's been around for forever and ever.
My parents in the 60s, so they was like, it just kicked off when they was born.
Yeah, Columbia is something like fairly new. Like, Baltimore, we know, has been around, like one of the first industrial cities. Okay. But but basically, as a developer, you're responsible for finding a project, financing the project, design, like hiring someone to design it, and then your architect, and then you hire your contractor to build it, and then you hire a realtor to sell it, and then you move on. You either copy, paste, repeat, or you just keep doing reiterations of that.
Okay.
But so I worked for this developer in New York, and at the time I was like, this is a cool job. I just treated it as a job. I got my check, I went home.
What was you doing for the company?
I was doing a little bit of everything. So it was a small company, and he had a high rise that it was a sugar factory in Williamsburg, right on the water, and he turned it into 69 luxury units.
Okay.
It was like South 4th and Wythe Avenue, I remember. So with that,
in New York?
Yep.
Okay.
With that project, I was there from the beginning of like when construction was still happening, and then when the rent is coming in. So you're leasing the building.
Okay.
So one thing that really, like with him, something that was so dope to me was he was third generation owner of his company. And he probably had like 900 units across the city.
Damn.
And so I would be responsible for like collecting people's, like they would mail in their rent. This was in 2011. So people would mail in their rent check.
That's history now.
I
That's
know,
ancient
yeah.
history.
I'm like, what year was this? Because why were we mailing in the rent check? Like
that's non-existent now.
Now
right?
you
Okay.
Zella rent,
Yeah,
you Cash App rent, you got a website, you got something.
Right.
But people would mail in their rent check, and I would be responsible to log it to take it to the bank.
Okay.
And it would just be like the first of the month up until like the 10th. Every day I'd be going to the bank.
Okay.
Because it'd be that many deposits coming in.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, this is a lot of money that this man, is making every month.
Right.
Like, and it used to be called, like some developers call it mailbox money. That's just like your passive income.
Okay.
That's just flowing in every month. You don't got to go get it. Like, it's coming.
Yeah.
And so.
That was what it was for him.
Yeah. That was his mailbox money. But you still have. At the time, I was like, oh my gosh, she has all this money. But now I know what I know now. It's still, you have your operating expenses, you have maintenance fees,
pay for a lot of stuff.
Taxes. Yeah, so it's not 100% yours, but it's still some high income.
Gotcha.
So was doing that for him. And then I got my real estate license at the time. And I think that's when I really fell in love with like true real estate. Like just the feeling of, I was renting out apartments in New York. So just the feeling, like I would get such a rush when I would show somebody an apartment and they'd be like, I like it. Like, and then, doing the contract, doing the listing, like doing all the work and then ultimately to get paid.
Right.
But that's when I fell in love with real estate. And then after that, I decided I didn't want to work with him. I went to work at Barney's in New York. I worked there for like 3 years. I still did real estate after work. And then after that, I worked like at some couple stupid places. And then a couple of them.
So before you go, did you working for him made you want to do the real estate thing?
Well, no. So at the time, no. Like even at this point, it's probably like 2014, 2015. I still didn't want to be in real estate. Like I was like, oh, I want to be in fashion. And then I was like, I want to just have a job. So then I was at Huffington Post. And then what happened was like Freddie Gray had happened here, but I'm in New York, but it's all on the news. And then I'm like, damn, I should be working for my father because my father has a company. My father never went to college. My father, was like selling drugs and stuff. So he hires a lot of people like that. Okay. So I'm like, I could come back and work for him. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I'm like, I could come back and work for him and like, that's, at the time, like Black Lives Matter was just like turning on kind of sort of the generational wealth thing. So I started coming back here more and I'm like, why is it all these vacant houses? Like, what's going on? This don't make no sense. And so
you ain't never noticed them before you left?
No, because when I left, I was in high school.
Okay.
Because I went to college and then I went straight to New York.
Okay.
So it's like I was too young to really grasp it, I think, or care. I don't know. And so when I started coming back, I'm like, this makes no sense. And then I started being like, I want to get some of these houses. I bought my own house. That's what changed everything.
Okay.
I bought my own house.
You came home and bought it?
Yep. So I moved like from my apartment. I had a U-Haul in New York. Come straight, take me into the house, like take the furniture to the house. And so that was a game changer for me because I saw how much little money I needed. Like I probably only came to the table with like $6,700.
So how did you have the initiative to just go buy a house? Was it your dad was like, you should, did he give you a heads up?
So at the time, you know, I'm living in Brooklyn. I'm like irritated. And then when I was coming back here more and more, I was just like, Baltimore is a place I could buy a house. I can't, because I was actually, I failed to mention this. I was trying to get some properties in New York before I left, and it was impossible. I realized it was all, I was about to say something, but I don't want to get Kanye Wested.
Go ahead.
Or Kyrie.
Please say it.
Those are like verbs now. Those nouns have become verbs.
For sure.
I don't want to get Wested or Kyrie.
The K's.
But I learned something real quick in New York.
All right, go ahead. Because now I really
unless you are Jewish,
it's hard to buy property.
You're not going to an auction and coming away with a property.
That was one of my questions when you were saying about selling real estate in New York. I know it's super expensive for the smallest apartments.
Well, I was renting apartments only.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay. So, but they still be high as shit for the smallest spots, though.
Yeah, but that's why it was like lucrative because, you know, if you charge a 1 month's rent and they would charge 15% of the yearly rent, which is some crazy.
High as shit.
That's like unbelievable. Yeah. But I would usually just charge people 1 month because I felt like that was my competitive advantage. I could
because they
do more.
They'd be more willing to do it for a month.
Exactly.
Okay, got you.
Exactly.
All right, but go ahead though. You came home.
But yeah, I came home and was like, I could buy here. I can't buy in New York. And so I just started doing some research. I had a friend. It all happened because I had a friend of mine. She was a realtor. We went to Topside, I remember. And she was like, yeah, you should look into a house. She's like, I got a lender. You should see like what happens, get pre-approved. She gives me this guy's information. I send over my documents. And then that was just it. Like the ball but it wasn't like I was like in that moment, like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go get a house right now. It was just like, well, she said get pre-approved. I'm gonna just see what I could get. And when I saw what I could get, I was like, oh, I could go get a house right now. So we started looking.
So I hate to cut you off, but I really want to know this because I want you to finish that spiel. But so my thing be with the houses and the apartments is like, if I see a slick ass nice apartment versus the house, I'm by myself, no kid, no nothing. You recommend the house because of the finance or even with all the amenities and all that, it's like still go get the house.
The reason why I say get a house, like in my case, you know, I was single and no kids. It was me and my dog that moved into my house. And I ended up getting a 4-bedroom house, 3 bedrooms up top and 1 in the basement. It's not like it's a huge house, but it's a row home. Okay. But the things with the house, the financial breaks that you get, like just going through the numbers.
I hear that too. I do hear that.
Like for instance, and I think too, a lot of people, they don't talk about numbers enough when they talk about real estate. Like people are like, oh, I bought my house for 4% down. It's like, what number was that?
Yeah, true.
So that's why I try to share. Like it could
be 4% of $1 million. Right. Yeah, I got
like, you. Like I came to the table with like $6,000 because I got a grant from the city for $5,000. So I didn't have to come with 11. I came with 6, and I had a really good tax year that year. I had a real big tax return. So I took my tax return and was like, I'm gonna put this to a house. And then my mortgage. Now that when I first bought my house, my mortgage was $1,400. My mortgage is now $1,100. Okay. Because I refied in the pandemic.
How long you been there?
4 years.
Okay.
But what's also interesting about a house, like for 2 years straight, I was just getting like checks back because now this part, I'm not too sure. I can't speak to it like with details, but I think I was overpaying in escrow or in something. So every time at the end of the year, I get like $1,500 back.
And you don't have to do no work. They just send it.
I would literally open the mail like, what's this? Like, oh, I got a check.
Damn.
Then when I did a refinance, when you do a refinance, I wouldn't have to pay I did 2 refinances. Each time I did it, I didn't have to pay my mortgage 2 months in a row. So that's saving a lot of money.
Okay.
Then you get the tax breaks where you making, you put on your taxes, I own a home, you write off your insurance, you write off a lot of your expenses. But even aside from all that, like $1,100 for a 4-bedroom house.
That's a steal.
That's a steal.
That's a steal. I ain't gonna tell you how much I'm paying for
right.
what I'm paying for.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm not, but.
And if you want the amenities, then get a condo.
True. That's what the broad I think I want to do.
Get a condo.
I think,
and
but
then,
I don't know.
Yeah.
I like. I'm gonna say this, and then I want you to go back to your story. I like if I stay here. I think I like Lutherville a lot. That area,
like
I
Towson.
Think,
is that like Greenspring?
Yeah, like in between Towson and I like that place that area to have a house. But we'll get to that. Go ahead. So go back.
And I think too, like one thing about the house part, like right now I'm going through a home equity line of credit, a HELOC, people call it. A home equity line of credit is basically when, like, I owe like 180 on my house, but the equity is at like 240.
Okay.
So you apply for a line of credit that's going to be like 90% of that. So I could get a home equity line of credit for, let's say, $40,000. And I don't have to use that money, but let's say something crazy happens.
Yeah.
Let's say I want to go buy another property. I could, and it's a lower interest rate. It's probably like 5% interest. I could take advantage of that money. It's like you're able to get money that you wouldn't even have had.
Yeah.
And not only that, your personal net worth. So like we rarely have to think about our personal net worth. But in what I do, I'm constantly like applying for properties, and that's one of the first things they ask you, what are your assets and your liabilities?
Okay.
So my assets are like $500,000 because I own property.
Gotcha.
So I could go to a bank and say, look, I need you to give me $200,000, but here's some collateral if something goes horribly wrong.
Okay.
Your borrowing power.
They're more willing to give it to you because you got
exactly.
Okay. All right, let's go back to the story. So you came home, you got the spot, you got the house.
I forgot where we even were. Okay, yeah. So I got the spot, and then I decided to start a company. It's called Onyx Development. I wanted it to be something like black.
Okay.
So it's like kind of, it is after like the onyx crystal.
And the rap group.
And the rap group. Every time
I
tell people, older like, and wait, wasn't Quentin from Moesha in that? Or something?
Yeah, front row, yeah.
Okay.
You said and the rap, like you really went with that idea for the. But no,
I did not know about that.
I know.
So like
you ain't know what Onyx was?
After, no. But weren't they a one hit one? I did some research.
No, they did a lot of shit. Right. But Slam was probably the biggest one.
I thought they was a one hit one.
He played in Sunset Park. He played in a lot of shit. Yeah. But go ahead though. Never mind me. Go ahead.
So I started this company in late 2018, and so now I just I find, as I mentioned, I just develop houses, but it's hard. It's a hard business model here because our neighborhoods are so, like, I don't know the word, like exhausted, and just our neighborhoods are just, it's difficult.
In all areas, the good and the bad areas or.
So what I do, most of my work is all in bad areas.
Okay. And
pretty much.
That's what you wanted to do.
That's just where the better deals are.
Okay.
That's where I don't have a lot of, like, if you have a lot of money, you can go to the good areas like Hamden and say, oh, I'm gonna get that vacant house in Hamden. But for me, I have to be in Southwest Baltimore or Park Heights or anywhere I can that's kind of the hood, because that's where I can get a price.
Right.
That's where I can get a home for a cheap price.
Okay. So how did you come up with the plan to this is what you're going to do?
Just, to be honest, I was talking to somebody about that earlier today. I just was like, oh, if I know now what I knew then. Wait, did I say it right?
If you knew then what you know now.
Yeah. I may have been like, hold on, you might need to take a step back and figure this out.
Right.
But I kind of just, the same way with the house, like I think a lot of times, like the moment you take a leap of faith with something,
just go with it.
You look and then you're like, well, damn, now I got to do this. Like, it's like your to-do list. You just doing things on your to-do list. And then you look and you like, oh, now I'm like doing
You're getting too deep now.
Yeah, so that's kind of how it happened.
No turning back.
It wasn't like really that intentional. It was just like, doing things on my to-do list, pretty much.
Gotcha. Okay. So you started your plan, and then you got to work, and then how did it? What was the? And you, what year was this? You say it started?
Like 2019, 2020.
Okay. All right. So you really just getting off the ground for real. All right. So then, all right. Well, tell me what happened next. Then once you got the ball rolling.
Once you get the ball rolling, you just really see you see why our city looks the way it does.
Okay.
And
why what's that?
Just, I mean, we have close to like 20,000 vacant houses. And the reason why is because the numbers don't work. So like in my case, I have a project on Gilmore Street. It's 8 houses, and it's probably like 12 vacants on that block. And the first house just finished, but it was like $300K to do the first house.
Okay.
Now, this is on Gilmore and Mulberry Street. You can't sell that house,
right?
But for so much.
Yeah.
Nobody from Baltimore is gonna be like, oh, let me get this house on Gilmore and Mulberry Street for $300,000.
So typically that will go to maybe somebody that's going down on University of Maryland or something like that.
Yeah, okay. or people from DC.
Okay.
Or people like from New York, any of these like, East Coast cities that they are priced out of.
And they trying to just find something cheap and getting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they can either live in it or rent it out.
How you get the project, the Gilmore Street project?
So I got it. Some of the houses I actually got for $1.
I was going to ask you about that program.
So, but it's not from the Dollar House program.
Okay.
But that thing kind of
You can tell me about that later? Not right now.
Yeah.
Right, go
that
ahead.
house kind of, that program has totally, it doesn't really exist.
It's not what it said it is.
No, but it doesn't exist.
Okay.
Like Nick Mosby was trying to pass a bill to get that done.
It didn't happen.
But it didn't pass. To my knowledge, it hasn't passed yet. I don't know if it's still going through whatever. But in my case, I worked through a nonprofit. A lot of times our nonprofits here they're able to buy houses for $1. So the nonprofit had the property. And then I came in as the developer for the nonprofit, and then they basically just signed the houses over to me. But even if you get a house for $1, it still don't make sense, because the $300,000 that I put into it is still not offset.
So it ain't no dollar.
And the $300,000 is only my construction cost. That's not including my insurance, my architect. I had to do like environmental studies where they test the ground. And
you gotta pay for that.
And you gotta pay for it. It's still a lot of other work that has to be done.
Where does that money come from?
So I have a grant from the state.
Okay.
Like $500,000 from the state. If I didn't have that, I wouldn't be able to do this.
Okay.
But that money came in first, so I was able to use that money. So I also do like a lot of grant writing.
Okay.
Like one thing I would say, like Biden really did his thing with this American Rescues Plan Act, because it's a lot of money for houses.
Okay.
That's coming up. It's like $2 million or something for Baltimore alone.
Oh, shit.
Just for houses.
So anybody could get that, or developers?
No, only you have to like apply for it.
Okay.
And you gotta be a developer. Like I don't even know. Yeah, it's like a tight process for that.
So what, you had to have credentials to be a developer, or you could just come up with a company tomorrow and
say, you don't really, it's not like you have like a certificate or anything like that. It kind of is like self-appointed, but the difference between a developer and a flipper is like a flipper is able to go into Hamden or, Canton or Fed Hill, kind of because they have the money to do so.
Okay.
And because they're flipping it they're in such good neighborhoods, and then they're flipping it, they know they're going to make their money. Whereas development, I don't know, it's kind of weird. Like sometimes you don't even know if you're going to make your money.
So if you don't, what is the benefit of it?
Well, for me, this is my first project. So the next house, I'll make money.
Okay.
Because I've learned so much.
Go ahead.
But after this, I think about doing like apartment buildings and like doing stores, like, going into the commercial side of it.
So so you are, as a developer, also considered an architect?
So
Two
the developer
things.
hires the architect. The architect is basically you have to hire an architect for everything you do.
Okay.
But they're the one who knows like the code and like, you know,
The
what you can
technical
put.
part.
Yeah.
So what do you give the architect? You just give him the
I
idea?
paid him. Oh, I'm like, I just paid him. No, yeah, I give them I tell them like, I want the kitchen on this, you know, in the front of the house or the back of the house.
And they do the design and
I
all
say
that.
how many bedrooms I want and
Okay.
bathrooms. And then they tell me if that's possible.
Okay, got you. All right. So when it comes to that, so that's a partnership basically. Y'all partner up, the developer and the architect.
Well, yeah, I guess you could call it a partnership.
Okay. So with that goes into play. How do you what's your plan when it comes to that part of the project, or do you just strictly say, do you have your scheme of how you want certain stuff to look, or is it?
Yeah, and it's like really tough because I definitely have my own, like, this is how I want things.
Your style, your aesthetic, and all that.
Yeah,
Okay.
and even like, so when you're working with the architect, that's just like the layout of the property. And so I am really particular on like how things are laid out. Just, you know, I think just being like a woman, you know, we
Yeah,
know
yeah.
functionality. Like, you know,
Yeah.
sometimes it's like, well, where is the pantry? Like, where is a place, like,
Yeah.
where's a coat closet or like things
Right.
like that.
Right.
And then I do all the interior design myself.
Okay. That's
One,
what's
because
up.
I don't want to pay somebody. Two, that's like the most fun part.
Yeah, I can imagine that. I would
Yeah.
imagine. So could you be hired by someone to do interior?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I think I'm gonna start doing that because when I posted my first house, a couple people was like, "Who designed these?" And I'm like, "Me." And it's like I could make some nice little money on the side.
Yeah, hell yeah.
potentially.
It sound like it. It sound like it. So what is your plan, like your ultimate goal, your plan or your dream for the city with your development company?
I would say for the city to just like get its act together. And it's on so many, I mean, like the city government needs to get its act together. Department of Housing needs to get its act together.
What you mean by that? Get that.
It's challenging. Like, you know, there's a lot of things we have to go through. Like you have to get inspections and permits, and the city just doesn't have really the bandwidth to assist everyone.
Okay.
So it slows your project up.
Okay.
And when I say like the city government, I don't know really how they. I just think, I mean, even today is really. I found out today. I don't know if you saw, but the man in Park Heights that was murdered. I mean, 4 people were murdered in Park Heights
Yeah, I
yesterday
seen
and
that.
today.
I seen that. A lot of people been.
A lot of, and one of them is a house flipper, 24 years old, just
Damn.
went to check on his house and was killed. And
that's
so
fucked
it's
up.
like everyone needs to get its act together. From
Yeah,
like the city
yeah,
needs to give
yeah.
people what they need so they're not out just committing crime.
24 years old.
24 years old.
Yeah,
like,
that's crazy.
it's just crazy.
Yeah.
So everybody, I think, needs, because I think too we would have so much more investment here if our crime wasn't so high.
Right. Because people look at Baltimore like a place to come in for real estate, right? Like to buy houses and shit like that.
Yeah, because
Or
they look
just
at
see
it as
that.
like the last of the, like the northeastern cities
Okay.
where you can get a good deal. Like,
Okay.
and because all the other cities have gotten their act together. Like Detroit used to be
Wow.
And
too.
I think what happens is like you look at Detroit and Baltimore, like we both were like heavy industry cities that don't exist anymore. So when these like industries left the city, so did the jobs
Yeah.
and so did the houses.
Right. Right.
Like people abandoned their houses because they didn't have a job. And then redlining kind of started here.
And it stopped,
So-
right? Or what? 'Cause
Well-
I know they had that project, the Red Line project.
Oh yeah, no.
That's different.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So right, but both of them are like tragic, like just tragic things that's happened. So redlining is when like back in, I guess this was like, I keep calling everything the 50s. We're just gonna stick with that. We're gonna run with the 50s.
All right, go ahead.
But basically, it's basically where lenders would say, here they put an outline. Like literally redlined on a map, neighborhoods where black people lived.
Okay.
And they said, if you live in these neighborhoods, we don't want to lend to you, or we're going to have different standards. So that's what created all the neighborhoods that have been redlined. Like if you go to them today, they're all vacant. Like it's still,
okay.
Like,
Damn.
the effects of racism is just like plaguing the city. And then, you know, Elijah Cummings and so many people worked so hard to bring the Red Line to Baltimore, and then Hogan just shut it down. But, you know, our transportation sucks. So if I'm trying to tell somebody from DC, oh, you should move to Baltimore, it's like, why though?
Yeah.
Like, I can't take any trains. I can't take the bus. Like,
So the MARC train and all that don't count.
but that's going from DC to Baltimore. Like, within Baltimore,
Oh, you
can't
saying like
get on no
subways
subway.
and shit, light rail? And all
Yeah, you can't. Like, what?
that? It ain't safe. That's what you saying.
And it's not reliable. People say. I mean, I don't take any of them.
I mean, that used to be my only way because I was coming from the county in the city. But I mean, it was consistent. But I mean, it ain't the.
Well, that's good.
It's better than New York. I'd say that.
It's better than New York?
I would think so.
Really?
New York, I would never take the train in New York. I know people say you
It's
should,
not.
but I know that's the way to go.
Yeah.
But all that shit that be happening on the train, no, fuck that. I ain't
That's
with
because
all
what
that.
you see on Instagram and like TikTok.
Oh, so it's sweet.
It's you can. I'll tell you this: when I worked for that developer, that man was rich. He
still
took the train
I mean,
everywhere
it
he
seems
went.
like everybody does that in New York. That's the way. Like
he
you
took the
gotta.
train, 'cause
That's why I
it's
could never live in
close.
New York. I'm not with all that. I like
All
to
the train,
drive
yeah.
and get where I'm going on my own. I don't
But the bus is horrible. I know for a fact that the buses are horrible.
in the city.
Yes,
Baltimore.
because I walk my dog and I take him on like a 30-minute walk, and every time I'm walking back, I see the same people on the bus stop from when I left at the house. I'm like, damn, if I was taking a bus, you really would have to leave like
Early.
so, and that's
Yeah.
just like, what kind of peace of mind, what kind of comfort
Yeah.
could you?
I don't know. I might got to push back on that. I can't really too much because I don't know. I haven't been on public transportation in so
Me
long.
either.
But
I
I
just think it
never
sucks,
really
though.
had no. I ain't had no issues with none of that though. But I guess it might be different when you from here though. Like I don't know. But I feel like I never had no. But I never really. I rarely took the bus. I probably could count on my hand how many times. But the subway. I always took the subway.
Well, it's good to hear that the subway.
But that was then though. I don't
Right.
know. But I don't know. But I don't think it's that bad. I just know when I think of New York, I'll be like, yo, I do not fuck that.
But even like when you think of like when you go to Philly, when you go to DC, when you go to Atlanta, like
It's smoother.
you can hop on a subway.
Okay.
You're not telling nobody here, oh, go take the subway from Johns Hopkins up to Rogers Avenue. Like, when have you ever directed someone via
Because
subway?
most people drive here though.
But people drive in Atlanta, people drive in Philly,
And they
people
still
drive in
take the
those
buses
places.
there?
But yeah,
And
they
then,
still take
public
public transportation
transportation?
because
Okay.
it's nice and it's reliable and it's quick.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't say it's nice, but
True.
I guess you got it.
it's nice
I guess
is
you got me with
subjective.
that.
Nice as nice as the train could be. Like, it ain't no Amtrak, it ain't no Acela.
True,
but it's
true.
it's a little something something.
Okay, got you. So, I don't even remember what the initial.
I know, like
What we was on
I
with
think
that
we was just talking about like the city. Oh, you asked me what was my what,
Yeah.
What would be like my vision? Yeah, I would just say for like everybody to get its act together, everybody to take some ownership. Like, people need to stop littering. Like, that's
Yeah.
something I really don't understand.
But what about your vision for your company for the city? That's what I.
Okay. I'm like, trash is an issue.
Go ahead.
My vision, I don't know. I feel like it constantly changes. I want to be able to look back and say, like, I've built a part of the city.
Okay.
So, like, today I was at our house, and I'm not Tebow Mannequin is the person who he was the developer of our house, but he also developed the whole Remington.
Okay, that
So,
area. I like Remington.
Yeah, he basically
Remington.
create. As you know, Remington was not a thing when we were younger.
Nah.
But he did all that starting in year like 2011, I want to say.
Making it more upbeat or whatever.
He just bought up a lot of stuff.
Okay.
So he bought up a lot of the houses and renovated them, and then he bought up a lot of the commercial spaces and like had a city planner to like really plan how like the flow of traffic, like really built
Okay.
a little city within a city.
Okay.
So I would love to do something like that.
Yeah, that's slick. I like the idea of that. I
Like
the idea.
stores, like a
Yeah.
whole little ecosystem where people can just walk out and go get food, or just like have a nice place to live, green space, like all that.
What's your ideal place for that? If you could anywhere in the city or in the
I mean, the place that needs it the most, I think two places are Southwest Baltimore and Park Heights.
Okay. Southwest would be like the
Baltimore,
Village and all that, like Embassy.
No, what I mean by Southwest is like
Pratt Street.
Sandtown.
Oh, okay, Sand. Got you. Okay.
Yeah, like down there. Like it's just they could really use it because that's not too far from where my houses are, and it's just it's just nothing over there.
Yeah, true.
And you shouldn't have to have a lot of money to be able to have a nice grocery store, or even like I was watching this little kid walk up the street and it was just nothing but vacants, and I'm like, that's playing a role on his psyche, whether he knows it, we know it.
For sure.
You know?
You become a product of your environment and you think this is what it is. Like this is all we got. So
like you should have beautiful houses and murals, and you know, you shouldn't have to just walk and feel like you in a third world country. Yeah,
true. It was one video I seen on Instagram. I think it was one of those Baltimore pages. And it was a white girl she was in the hood. She was walking around. I forgot what the narrative was they was talking about, but they was basically saying like, she was saying in every neighborhood it's supposed to be like a market or a food store in a certain I forgot the word she used, but a certain amount of space that is supposed to be in every area. So she was like, it wasn't like the closest one was this far from this place and all this other. She basically was pointing all this shit out.
Exactly.
And they didn't have the stuff that we need in our stores to really make a difference.
Even like the way I went to the ShopRite, is it a ShopRite in Mount Clair Junction? Like I had to run over there one day for something, and I can't remember what I got. But I just remember whatever I got, it was like stale when I opened it up. Yeah. But it's because it's a grocery store in the hood. You don't find that. Even me, I live in Northeast Baltimore. I don't like the Giant on 33rd Street. I like the Giant on 41st Street.
Yeah.
You know, so it's just a lot of like.
And that's expected because shit go down at that one over. Right. Yeah. So, but you want to go, and it's sad that we gotta feel like that, but you want to go where you comfortable. Exactly. You want to go where you comfortable.
It's like all intertwined.
I think when you get in a commercial, one place I think really got so much potential, and I always said every time I ride past that whole Howard Street part when you pass like where Planned Parenthood is and all that, or that old shit used to be at. I think all that whole strip got so much potential.
But that's coming up. Like I know a good friend of mine. I should use this time to highlight some developers.
Please do.
So there's Alex Aaron of Blank Slate. He's doing a project over there, and these are all young black people.
Okay.
Alex went to Howard, but he's probably mid-30s.
Okay.
Then there's so also another person I know working on Howard Street, Chris Mfume. He's Kwesi Mfume's son.
Okay.
He's also our age probably. And he has a big what they call LIHTC, low income housing tax credit. So that's gonna be a big project.
Okay.
Then there's like people like Dave Bramble, who's like the GOAT of real estate development in Baltimore. He has some stuff over there. And then Jason Williams is also a friend of mine. He is also working on the 400 block. Okay. So I'm sure in like 2 years, that's going to look totally different.
I hope so. It got so much. They trashed it real bad, but it got so much potential to be how it is. Because when you look at the old pictures of how it used to be, it looked like
that was downtown.
Okay.
Like that's what, like even my father was like, we didn't call like the harbor downtown. Like it was like when you go downtown, you going to Howard Street.
Okay. I can imagine that. Yeah. Because it looked like that, and all the old, it looked like it was live, like it was lit down there.
And even like Pennsylvania Avenue was like that's such a like historic.
So much history.
Yeah, like all the big artists like went to the Avenue.
I heard that too. Definitely heard.
But it's like when you look at the Avenue now, it's just like
it's the hood.
It's the hood and Park Heights. Like everything is just so. Like I was thinking about Park Heights Avenue from Cold Spring up to like Belvedere, I guess you could say. And it's like I remember when I used to be in high school and I would take the bus up to my grandmother's house up on Park Heights Avenue, and it just looks exactly the same when I was in high school as it does now. And it's just like, why aren't there
Yeah.
just like nicer
Progression.
stores right
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
Like why
that
can't
got potential too.
Yeah, that
The
has a
whole
lot of
Park Heights.
potential.
Yeah, the whole Park Heights for real.
I didn't notice, but I was at this meeting the other day, and they said that there used to be an Eddie's on Park Heights Avenue.
The market, Eddie's Market.
Yeah, Park Heights and like a hood intersection though. Like what we now know is a hood intersection.
Okay,
It was an Eddie's
either.
Market.
I didn't know that.
Because they do have all the Jews in Park Heights.
Yeah, Jewtown.
But-
Yeah. Cross the street is a whole nother world.
Exactly. But
it's crazy.
it's just a lot of parts of town that I think of that like we could do so much better, but I just feel like it can't all be on the developer. Like the city,
They got to work with
they
y'all.
got to give some money.
Yeah, true.
Or else it's going to stay the same way that it looks now.
So is that a thing that's like everything else? Like when you say stop violence, the police, the city got to do stuff about violence. Like, well, how? And you can say this a million times and nothing changed. So is it the same with development? Is this something people can do for it to change, or is it like they probably won't?
Like a good question. I think in development's case, there are things that can be done to change it, and I think the city just needs to like get out of its own way sometimes, so that can be done. But I mean, I think about crime. I even think of like people like the mayor. Like I'm like, I don't know how you could do like a good job in people's minds.
Yeah, I always say that. It seems impossible to please people.
What are you supposed to? Yeah, and even like, I mean, I do feel like though, like the crime commissioner or whatever, it is like, well, you are hired to like fix the crime.
True.
So, but it is like, how do you even fix crime?
I don't even know where you start.
I don't know where you.
I don't know where you start with that. Like it seemed like an impossible feat.
It does, but what I do think is that maybe if you create jobs.
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe if you, and what also happens is in all these blocks, you look at Sandtown, you look at Park Heights, they have nothing but vacants. So that's also, it makes it easier, as we know, for crime to just happen. Like drug dealers can post up. You obviously, we all know you're not seeing drug dealers in Roland Park, Hamden, in occupied parts of town, you're not seeing drug dealers posted up.
So what do you do with the vacants? What should be done?
I think that there should be money given to the people that can renovate the vacants, and then there should be money given to the people that can buy the vacants.
Okay.
So that way it's like everybody's kind of getting financial assistance to help solve this problem. But like also when you think about the wealth gap, like they say the average black family has $24,000. And the average white family has like, I think like 112. And it's just like,
that's crazy.
And then I found this statistic that said like almost half of your net worth is derived from you owning real estate.
So everybody needs to own something.
So until we own real estate, we're not gonna have that net worth.
So do you plan on teaching this other than this to the people?
Yeah, I love to talk about real estate. I love to you saying, hold on,
real estate and that whole game about, because you're saying that people need to own stuff, but when people don't know what to do, where to go, how to get it.
I do this thing where like I always tell people like I'll meet with anybody. I'll talk to anybody. Okay. Like my cell phone number, I have these big signs I put up on my houses. Like my cell phone number is I'm not afraid to like give out my cell phone number kind of thing.
Okay. You wouldn't do like seminars or nothing though?
Yeah, I would. I would love to do. I mean, I teach a little class. I shouldn't call it a little class, but it's to ages 14 to 22. And it's through this organization called Heart Smiles. Okay. Joni at Heart Smiles is doing amazing things. But I teach that. And actually today the reason I was at our house was I met with one of the students from the class that I taught, and me and her I keep in touch with a lot of them, and she's like, can we go out to eat? And I was like, sure. But even with her, she's in high school. She's like, I have like $10,000, and I'm trying to figure out what to do with it. And I'm like, you so smart to already be asking these kinds of questions.
Yeah, super.
Like you're already way ahead of the game.
Blew that shit.
Right. I'm like, the fact that you're even asking that just shows like how far.
Salute to her.
Yeah, advanced you are. But so I do teach that class. But other than that, like I would love to teach to like adults, you know.
Yeah, I think you
I
should
just
start
don't know where to start.
Just get a venue, put a flyer up, and the rest is gonna do itself.
That's true.
But for the people who don't know, how could they get into that? For the kids that want to be a part of what you just said, is it anybody can join that?
Yes. Well, you got to be 14 to 22, and then you apply through Heart Smiles Inc.
Okay.
I'd have to find out. I think I'm sure they have like a website. Okay. But I'd have to find out what the process is to get into that. But I definitely was like heavily advertised because I can't leave before I say this. If you have any elderly people in your family, do not let them sell their house. I
remember you said that on your post too. Why is that?
Because here, I'm gonna just speak from experience. In my family, a certain side of my family didn't know what I was doing. And so a grandmother, she passed away. They sold her. She lived on Monroe Street. And, you know.
The trenches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
And, you know.
So
I don't got to say it. But
so they sold her house for $5,000. I know the person they sold her house to. Wow. He's a flipper. He has commercials on TV.
He was happy as shit.
He took the house. He wholesaled it. So he basically did a quick flip on it for $40,000.
Damn.
And now somebody is like renting that house out. They renovated it, and now they're renting it out, probably doing Section 8. Probably, you know, they're not paying any mortgage on that house.
He got 35 out of it.
He got so many people made money off of this transaction.
Damn.
And it's just like, I was like, what? Like, I wish I would have been more, you know, sometimes we don't feel like we are telling, like, I don't know, I just wasn't like, hey guys, I'm in real estate.
Yeah.
And so they didn't know,
but people, so a lot of people will, like, if the elderly pass or something like that, they try and get rid of it, so they'll give it up for whatever if they don't know nothing better. Yeah.
When it's just like, as young people, you could say, all right, let me get the house for $5,000.
Yeah.
And even if you don't know where to start, just
move in,
take it. Move in. Yeah. You could. There's also what's called like a 203K loan, where you can get a loan to do the construction in the house, and then you live in it. Like you get paid to fix it up, kind of thing. But it's all completely doable, but I think a lot of times we just be like, oh, well, like I was watching This Christmas, was that the holiday movie I was watching? And they were like trying to sell the grandmother's house. Or no, they were trying to sell the cleaner company, but that was, the husband was, all right, that's a long story. But a lot of times it's just like, well, let me make a quick dollar, let me sell this.
Yeah. But you want to take your time.
But you got to like think a little longer term, and at least let you be the one making the money off of it in a family than a stranger.
Right. So much money can be made. So for the people who don't, like me, speaking for me, the people who, like I told you, paying whatever amount for renting an apartment, like I said, single, no, I ain't got no pet, no nothing, it's just me. So if my thing is the pros and cons, whenever I look at apartments and houses, like I'm sure, I don't know for sure, but of course everybody always say it's better to get a house because you're paying all this money in rent, you can end up owning it. My mind goes to the 30-year shit, and it's like, all right, well, 30 years, I'm probably not even going to be, I'm not going to want to stay there no more. That, and then there's a thing of, you know, the amenities, you know, if something breaking the house is all on you type of shit. Yeah. And then just not really necessarily needing that much space. But I know, like you said, you know, like that rent you saying is crazy. But for the people who don't know, before I ask this, are you still doing the realty? I mean, like,
no.
Oh, okay, you done with that? All right. So for the people who don't know, what is the information, or what is pros and cons of getting the spot?
Of getting it, and especially like in your case, in anybody's case, who's like lives alone and like and sometimes it's like, I don't even know if I want to be here. And I've heard people say like, I've heard people say everything from like, well, that house is not yours because you owe the bank, and it's just like,
I don't give a fuck about that. You ain't gonna own the apartment either, so it ain't no point in it.
Right. Like,
people
okay,
got too much.
Your car is not yours either.
Ego like, shit. It's all ego shit. I don't care about that.
I would say the pros and the cons are, one, if you don't want a lot of space, you can get a condo or you can get a smaller house, especially in like, you know, down there by like the stadium and stuff. Like a lot of those houses are really skinny. Yeah. So you get a little 2-bedroom, little something quaint. If you're the person who doesn't even know if you want to be here 10 years from now, I can guarantee you your mortgage is going to be less than what you could rent it out for. So you can hire a property manager and they manage the property. And another thing, like this ties into the person who also thinks about 30 years being far away. You can always sell it.
True.
Like, you can always sell it. And the thing is that, I mean, right now we don't know what's going to happen with this recession, but it all goes up and down and it always like comes back. So I would say it's better to be in a position of like, oh, I got this like asset on my hands that I don't know what to do with.
Okay.
You know,
eventually you can do something.
You could Airbnb it.
True.
You could hit up a cousin. You could like, I would love to get to a point where I'm so wealthy that like I'm saying to my little cousins, all right, well, I got a spot you could stay in rent free because I've already paid it off, type thing. So it's also helpful for like generational wealth. That's another thing. Like, a lot of times with Black people, we don't have, when our grandparents pass away, we don't get a check. Like white people, it's like, oh, I have a trust fund. Yeah. We don't have that. But we could at least have a house.
True. An asset.
Yeah.
Right. So the part about when you said you only had to come to the table with that 6,000, how do other people know or have the opportunity to come with that little bit of money?
So there's a program there's a lot of city programs out there. What I should do is like put together at least a list of these programs that I can post on my page.
Even if you send it to me, because I'm gonna get I ain't gonna lie, I'm gonna get on top of this shit now, like for real.
And look this stuff
tomorrow, like this week, whenever you do.
So some of them, there's one thing called vacant to value. Vacant to value is what I got. Okay. It has nothing to do with your income, and it just means that the house that you bought was vacant for a year prior to you buying it. So in my case, the house was vacant. And it's
meaning
funny,
no one was living there.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's funny because my neighbor tells me all these stories about the family that lived there before me. And at one point I was like, I don't want to know those stories. Like you kind of creeping me out.
It was horror stories.
Yeah, he was just like, yeah, the kid was real weird. Like he kept saying that, and I'm like, okay.
They white people? Or
they were Black people.
Your neighbors Black or white?
My neighbors are Black.
Oh, okay.
All my neighbors are Black.
So they kept it real.
Yeah. And that's why I'm like, just stop telling me. I didn't even ask you for this. But so in my case, the house was vacant. In anybody's case, if your house, and what happens is if anybody's out there looking for a house right now, you could call a phone number and you give them the address and they tell you if it's on the link or not. There's also a website you can check to see if you can find like any lists of vacant houses. 2, there's something called Live Near Your Work. So like Johns Hopkins, University of Maryland, Baltimore, if you work for any of those entities, you can get like $15,000 down, which is a ton of money. Okay. And then they have some that are more income based. So if you make less than like $60K, you can get like $20,000. But I don't know if they still have funding for that right now. But that's what I'm saying, where the city needs to do its part. Because a friend of mine called me today and was like, oh, they say that the funding is like ran out. And I don't know if they're renewing it January 1. Yeah. But the city has to do its part to like incentivize first-time home buyers. Yeah, true. And then like the FHA, so there's something called the, so you know, you have Freddie Mac, Fannie Mac, And so you can get a loan where you're only putting 3.5 down of the house.
Okay.
So if you get a house for 200,000, that's that's around like 6,000-7,000, and then you have your closing costs, so that could take you like up to 11. But you know, if you could get a grant to help you with that, that's way less money. Yeah.
All of this stuff is generally 90%. If anybody applies, they'll get this type of stuff.
Yeah, it's not really. It's only based on, and it's based on cycles, like funding cycles. So I know the city gets a lot of their money in the summer, but if you hit them on the cycle, you can get it just as well as anybody. And then there's something called house hacking. Like a lot of people start with that. That's when you get a home. You only get the 3.5 down like one time in your life. There is like a loophole, but I don't know. I don't really know too much about that. But you get a 3.5 down once in your life. So what some people say to do is to get a house that has like kind of like this, what we're in now, that you can have like 3 units in it. You, especially for someone, if you want a smaller space, if you like, you know, you don't need that much space, you live on the first floor, you rent out the second. And then essentially that rent is going to be paying your mortgage. Right. So you're living for free.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a Diamond, the girl Diamond that was on it. We did this like one of my first few episodes. She got into selling real estate, and she got a condo that she talked about. No, a duplex down Canton. It's a whole story about that. But she basically had the part of the deal where she had to live in it for a certain amount of time.
You have to live in it, and then typically you have to live in it for like 5 years. I think
it might have been 2 or 5.
2 or 5.
Yeah, one. I can't remember, it was so long ago, but yeah, something like that. But yeah, she broke that down. I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah, the house hacking is a big thing. Sometimes I mean, in my case, I was coming from living in an apartment, so I was just like, I'm tired of it. You know, it didn't work for me. Right. But if I could do it all over again, maybe I would like do some house hacking, or I would have like started earlier. Yeah. But there's a lot of and then there's also like lease to own programs. I'm not the most knowledgeable on them, but for some people, you could like lease a house, and then that's after like 3 years, that house just rolls into a mortgage. Okay. Kind of thing. My niece told me the other day, she lives in Towson. She bought a house in Towson. She's like 24. And she was like, yeah, it's a lease to own. And I'm like, I got to hit her up because I need to figure out like what this deal is. I don't understand it.
Yeah. So do you know if the programs and benefits are the same for the county? Or you ain't too sure about that?
I'm not sure about the county. The city has a lot of programs because they're trying to bring people back to the city. So I'm not quite sure about the county. But I think, and then there's something called NACA, National, I don't know, the ACA.
We'll figure it out later.
But I know they have an office right off of Howard Street, right on Franklin Street. And they also have a lot of like good resources and like grants and down payments and like all that good stuff.
So a lot of stuff you feel like if we go looking, we'll find it, but people don't look.
Yeah, and I feel like people don't have anybody to point them in the right direction. True. So like sometimes I'll just
that's why I
tell people like, yo, call me.
And you need to do that seminar.
I know.
Or some kind of thing to give up that game.
I do. Put it on Eventbrite.
Yeah, because people are definitely, I feel like people definitely come. But hopefully this would be the.
I know. This could be the launch.
Yeah, I'm going to push it because this type of stuff. And that's why I hollered at you ASAP as soon as I seen it. Like I ain't even, to be honest, I didn't even listen to the whole thing. But when I reached out to you, I went back yesterday and listened to it. But because I always wanted to, if people don't know stuff or if it's there and people not sure where to get it, the information, I want to do my part. And plus, like I said, I want to know my damn self.
And you doing your part. And it's funny because I was telling the girl that was in the class earlier, she's like, well, what's the name of the podcast? And I'm like, we need answers. And she was like, damn, that sounds good. Like,
shout out to her, man. Yeah, man.
But it's like we do. Like the people need answers on so many stuff.
Right. And that was the whole, and that real shit, that's how I came up with the title. Like that's a part of how I came up with the title. I say this every few episodes. My first 8 was about shit that we know we talk about, but we really don't know the real deal about.
Yeah.
So this is the type of shit. Like
Yeah.
and it's similar to what you were saying. Like my father, you know, street guy. He always, it was a lot of stuff. Him and other people also, like my other elders. They tell you a lot of stuff, but they don't like. It's not. They don't necessarily. They never necessarily lived it.
Yeah.
To give you the game about it. It's like, all right, yeah,
everybody's
get a
doing
house.
the best they can,
Right.
but it's like, yeah.
And he's like, get a house, but it's like, all right, give me some more information. Why? Why
Yeah.
should I? Or
Yeah.
what? And all they say is, you spend all this money on rent with the apartment. I'm cool. If I can afford it, then why would I trip?
Right.
But then it's more than that. It's not about you can just afford it. So
it's more than that. And I think too, like, and then about the 30-year thing, because I've had people be like, 30 years. So one thing that was like blew my mind is that if you make one extra mortgage payment a year, that saves like 5, like I think 6 is 7. It saves 7 years on your mortgage.
oh shit.
So like every time I get a tax return, like I always go back to tax return because that's like the one time of the year. Well, now I no longer get taxes, but when I was getting tax returns, I would be strategic with that money. And a lot of times I'd put one extra payment to my mortgage. So it's a lot of things you can do where even if you pay $20 extra a month, it's not going to be a 30-year mortgage. And God willing, we all going to be here in 30 years from now anyway.
Yeah, when I said that part, I didn't mean not being here. I meant, I meant not being in Maryland or Baltimore. That's what I meant. Like, that's
but the dope part is, think about this, like 30 years from now, so I'm 32. So 30 years from now, I'm 52. I'd have a house that's totally paid off.
True.
So if I put a tenant in there for $2,000 a month, I'm making $2,000 a month.
Yeah. Disposable income kind of.
Yeah, that's mailbox money.
Yeah, mailbox money. Shout out to Nipsey Hussle. So another question I had was if anybody wanted to get involved with development, strictly the development part, what would you say? Like,
how do you start?
Yeah.
I would say, yeah, that's a good question. I would say,
you feel like you got your start because you coming from a background with the real estate company and your dad. That was kind of like you had an angle to go into that.
But I would say, I don't know. I feel like also me buying my house triggered a lot. So, like, there's no kind of patience you learn until you're under contract on a house. And no kind of like,
it's a long process, right?
Yeah, and it could be, I mean, it could be like 30 days, but it's one of those types of things where like, you got to have your phone close by because, you know, things are moving and at any moment they could call you and like, I have a buyer for this house and they called me yesterday with some bad news and I'm just like, well, I don't know. Like, we'll see what happens, you know, whether this goes through it, whether it doesn't. But I feel like my experience of going through the process myself helps me now when I'm selling a house to be like, well, I know anything could happen until we get to the closing table. Nothing is solidified. So, but I would say if you want to get into development, I would say start with just like an investment property. Like, start with either a house for yourself, start with like a house hacking. Or if you already own a house, like try to get a second house. But in terms of like how to start a development company, and it's so weird because even though I did it, it's like, it's not that I don't know how I did it, but it just, I guess to say you get an LLC, that's where you could start. You get your EIN, and then you network. I found the answer. Okay. I'm on track. I'm like, how would you do this? I forgot. Okay, so for the whole first 2 years, I just networked. I went to every single housing event that there was, and I basically just met people. So when the time came that I knew someone that had properties, they were like, "You want these properties?" And I was like, "Yeah." But it was after years of like fostering relationships, like checking in with people, following up with people. Like,
did you get pushback or everybody was more like friendly? And giving up information.
I was shocked how friendly everyone was. Okay. And that was one of the things that really drew me here. And I think I would even go as far as to say that, like, I think our whole entrepreneurship community is pretty much like that.
Yeah, I would say that.
Right?
Would agree.
Like,
I would agree.
It's not a lot of, even though you and somebody could be doing the same thing, it's not like, yo, I gotta beat this man.
For the most part, yeah. It's more than what you would think.
It's more than what you would think.
More than what you would
think. So I had so many people, and this is why I always say, like, I always will give out my number, because I had so many people. I remember it's this one guy, his name is Sharif Small. I gotta shout out Sharif. Sharif has a building on 25th Street because he's an accountant and he's a developer. And someone gave me a list of people to call, and Sharif was on that list. And Sharif and I would talk for like a year straight. Like, it might be 30 minutes here, it might be an hour. And it got to the point where I remember one day I was at an Orioles game, like in a suite with somebody, and somebody came in and they were like, yeah, this is Sharif Small. And I'm like, Sharif? But I'm like, we never met.
Oh, you never met in person.
But we had been on, he had like just given me so much free information.
That's what's up.
For like over a year, and without even ever seeing, like meeting.
Yeah. And that's the most valuable thing. Information is most important, valuable than money sometimes. So
exactly. And there's certain things that people said to me, like when I took on Gilmore Street, I was like, oh, I need to get a partner. And I'll never forget, this lady said to me, she's a developer, she was like, why you need a partner? And I was like, cause I don't know what I'm doing. And she's like, girl, go to the bank, get a loan, get an architect, get a contractor.
Right. Simple.
And I was like, okay.
It was that simple?
But it's difficult, but it was that simple.
Those steps
was it. Like,
wow.
So I think sometimes, like, we don't realize like how simple our words are.
Yeah, true.
You know, you tell somebody like, well, you know, just do this.
You get more scared to do it when you really just gotta do it.
Exactly.
You was intimidated by that project?
Yeah. I mean, for a while, I almost had like imposters. Like, I didn't think it was my project. Even though they told me it was my project, we hadn't signed anything. So I sat on the project for like 6 months. Because I was just like, well, I don't know. They said it was mine, but I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Like, I don't know nothing. So I sat on the project for like 6 months. And then once I got started, though, I did get started. And what's funny is I could host my first event at the house because the house is staged.
See, it's coming all together.
I know,
it's coming all together.
I just had that like light bulb moment.
Yeah, real shit.
But
gotta do
but
it.
I do have, if anybody's interested in buying a house, I do have another house in Park Heights that should be done in like the next 3 weeks or so.
Okay.
And then I have a house in Holland's Market coming up. But I haven't started it yet, but I should be starting soon. But I'm waiting on the city, actually, on that house.
Is this, I'm sure you enjoy it, so you might not say it is, but is this a hard career? Like, is it?
Yeah.
Is it tough?
It's two things I always say about this. Is I'm like, so technically, I have not, you don't get paid in development until you sell a house.
Okay.
So even though I have
my next question about
a bunch of properties,
you ain't making nothing to tell you.
I haven't made $1. I haven't paid myself $1. Even though I have like the bank account for the business may have well over 6 figures. I haven't touched any of that money for myself.
And you shouldn't.
In my case, I feel like I shouldn't because I feel like that's for that property.
Okay. So you gotta have discipline.
like, yeah, you gotta have discipline. And what I've done in my case is I have a bunch of like part-time jobs. I do a lot of real estate consulting. I do real estate consulting for other companies. Okay. So, but it's tough because then I got 1 million jobs to pay for myself. And then I have a whole company that has a bunch of houses that needs attention as well. So that's one part of it that's stressful. But I say all the time, I'm like, this is the only thing I'd ever do for free. Right. Because I've been doing it for free for all this time. Yeah. Like, there's nothing else I could do.
And you only do stuff for free if you love it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And then that's when it's not work.
Yeah, it's I mean, I'm still that person, like, I hate Mondays. Like, they be like, oh, you do what you love, you don't gotta work. No, it's still work, but it's
So what does your day-to-day look like?
I start my day really early. So usually I'm on my laptop like 7. I'm up working. My day is usually I try not to take any meetings on Mondays or Fridays. Mm-hmm. So that means Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are just like crazy days.
Cram.
And just like every 30 minutes, it's a meeting, or an hour, it's a meeting.
Phone call meetings.
Phone call,
Zoom,
in person.
Okay.
So my day to day is like, typically it's talking to the architect. It's talking to the contractor a million times. Like today I got to the point where I told the contractor, like, unless it's about this certain house, don't call me. Like, I need you to text me. You can email me.
Yeah.
But he sometimes just likes to call to talk about stuff. And I'm like, today's not the day for that. So.
Like venting?
No, but like he'll be like, yeah, with that other property, we need to look. And it's just like, that other property's not on my to-do list today.
Okay.
So talking to contractors, talking to the lender, trying to get this deal closed. I still go to a lot of outreach events. This morning I did a tour of the house that's finished. Then I did, I met up with the girl, my friend from like
the program.
From the program. So sometimes, it's not all work. I also I have a financial advisor. I have my 2 to 3 p.m. today was with them. So it's not that but typically my day is from like 7 a.m. to like 6 p.m. And sometimes it goes to like 8 p.m.
Okay.
So I try to squeeze in some personal stuff in between.
Okay.
Yeah.
You plan on going commercial?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that's where the money is.
Yeah. I agree, and I would think that's where you really could show off your creativity with that.
Yeah. I think it's like that's needed just as much as these houses. And I just think it's going to take some time for like the city to figure out what they need to do on their part to really shift the needle. Yeah.
You got to really start putting your feet on their neck.
I know. I had a conversation.
Everybody you named.
So it's funny because literally today, the tour that I had, he was like, "Can I ask you to start hosting like monthly meetings with all the developers you know?" And he's like, "If y'all just even come up with a list of things that y'all need to do your jobs better, that's a start that you could take."
True. You think they'll do it?
The developers or the city?
Developers.
The developers would do it.
Okay.
The developers would do it. Because we all definitely have great relationships. Like, so some of the other developers, I love Joanna O'Hara. She's like, I called her at like 7:30 yesterday. Has O'Hara Development. She's in East Baltimore, but I called her at like 7:30 yesterday because I know she's gonna be up too, because she's in this industry where it's like it's an early industry kind of thing. There's Armstead Jones. That's my guy. We also just talk, like I'll call him and we'll be on the phone for like an hour and a half, just like shooting the shit. He works a lot with Dean Harrison. Dean Harrison is amazing. He's a little more seasoned, as I would say. But Dean is just like the most like suave and like calm, but knows his stuff kind of guy. He's over in Upton. They're doing like 30, 40 units in Upton. Okay. And then there's Bree Jones with Parody Homes. She's just like killing it. She's killing it. She's in Southwest Baltimore. And
is she young? Like our age? I think I know who you're talking about. I think I'm familiar.
Yeah.
If I'm thinking about the same person.
Yep, that's probably Bree. Bree has a lot of houses over there. And that's who. And then I also work with Melanie at the South Baltimore Community Land Trust. Okay. So I'm a consultant and they're in Curtis Bay, Brooklyn. And Brooklyn, I've never been to Brooklyn, but now I'm in Brooklyn.
Yeah, Brooklyn's different.
But Brooklyn is different.
It's different, yeah. Different. And South Baltimore is different.
Yeah, but they put that, I don't know if you know, but Amazon has a huge plant.
It's out there now?
Out there.
Oh, okay.
So, and then, now they're naming it Middle Branch. They're trying to turn Cherry Hill into, they're also naming it something called Middle Branch. And then you have Port Covington down there. Yeah. So that's going to be like,
up and coming.
Yeah.
All that is up and coming.
Yeah, but it's like we got to get control over this before the white people do.
Yeah. I hope y'all do. I really do. I'm rooting for y'all. I'm definitely.
I appreciate it. We need it.
And if you feel like any of them would be good to come on here, please throw them. Send
You
this
know
to
what
all
I
of
think
them.
would also be nice? Would
What?
be like a we need answers, like a history of Baltimore. And I'm
Yeah.
sure you've, but like even
I
when I
like
think
that
about
idea.
like the real estate or like Pennsylvania, when we talk about Pennsylvania Avenue, when we talk about there used to be a Eddie's in Park Heights, like
Yeah.
having like some older people almost that
Yeah.
can like speak to like what was Baltimore like when it was supposedly
I
a
do
million people lived here.
Yeah, I do that typically with the Real Wire series.
Yeah.
It's usually older guests and they talk. They don't. I always one of my questions is always to give me like an event or a landmark from back in the day.
From back in
and
the
talk
day.
about how it was back then. So yeah, but I definitely want to go more, especially with architect and
Yeah.
the landscape of how it was.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't. I never did a full episode of that. So
Yeah.
that's a good idea. I definitely willing to do that for
Yeah.
sure. For sure.
Yeah, and I would like to just, I mean, I would definitely be watching because it's like, you know, you got to know your history to like know what you're even capable of doing.
Absolutely. I talked about that on the last one.
Yeah.
It's always important to know about your history in any field that you're doing anything.
Exactly.
Because that's when you appreciate it and that's when you know. Because there's nothing new under the sun. Everything can happen more than once. So it's just good to get that experience. That's another reason why I did this.
Yeah.
Listening to older people tell stories about shit.
Right,
I used to love
right.
that. When my uncle first came home, he was with me like every day. Talking about shit before he got locked up.
Yeah, sharing stories.
Yeah.
And it's like you watching a movie a little bit. Like you like picturing it like, damn,
That's
I know what that looks like now. Like
that's my life, man. I love shit like that. So that's the reason why we here now. So I definitely appreciate all the game, all the information. Definitely would like to have you back for progress on all of this. Is there anything that you want to share or give the people before we close out? Any information you want to share?
Don't be afraid of real estate. Same as like I say, like just reach out to somebody. You know, if you know somebody that's bought a house or you know, my information is gonna be on here.
Yeah, for
you
sure.
can reach out to me, but just start asking the questions because you got to like demystify how it works.
Yeah.
And but I would say like the time is always gonna be now.
True.
So just get started.
True, definitely. So I'm definitely gonna be hitting you up about all them programs.
Thank you
and
for
all that
having me.
shit. Nah, real shit. I'm glad you came. I'm glad we was able to make it happen quick too. So
Yeah.
and shout out to Chris too because we was able to get on top of it too. So and get in here. But with that being said, much luck and success to you on these projects you got.
Thank you.
And everything else. And thank you for coming. And like I said, holler at them people if you think they'd be good to come on.
I definitely will.
Let them know.
Yeah.
Please come and give us some more game and information if possible.
Yep,
And
we need answers.
for sure. Like with that being said, we out.